Your driving style might be the silent killer of your mounts. Aggressive launches, rail crossings, and heat soak push rubber past its limit. And if the mounts were pulled into place with bolts, they're doomed from day one. Stick around. I'll connect your habits to the exact noises and vibrations you feel, then teach you to ask for the neutral travel range check so your next set doesn't trigger exhaust strain, cooling line stress, or electrical faults. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Your car feels calm at idle, so why does a single hard launch leave the dash buzzing and the shifter rattling days later? Because the mounts that keep the engine in check do more than hold it in place. They're your cabin's shock absorbers against torque reactions, firing pulses, and those abrupt start and stop jolts. When they're healthy, they turn chaotic engine forces into harmless heat and tiny movements you barely notice. When they lose a little stiffness, the balance changes fast. Here's where it gets sneaky. A small dip in stiffness doesn't mean a small change in motion. It can mean a surge. Mounts work in a nonlinear zone. When the material softens by a bit, the engine can swing by a lot. That tiny softness unlocks travel the mount wasn't seeing before, so the engine rolls farther, picks up momentum, and returns with extra snap. It feels like nothing at idle, but under load it shows up as a new rattle, a new buzz, a knock during gear changes, and then it sticks around. Think of the whole powertrain as a heavy pendulum hanging on soft bushings. Nudge it and it swings. Push it harder and it overshoots. When it comes back, it doesn't stop at center. It whips past, then rebounds again. That overshoot is the mechanical whiplash that beats up mounts and everything attached to the engine. The softer the support, the bigger the arc, and the sharper the snapback. Now add the way the materials age. Rubber is viscoelastic. It stretches and relaxes with time, temperature, and load. Heat and oxidation dry it out and change its behavior. It can harden in one direction, soften in another, and lose the rebound control that keeps the engine calm. Fluid-filled mounts have another failure mode. If they leak or if air gets into the fluid, damping drops. You still have a physical connection, but the fluid no longer resists fast motion. So the engine can rock freely and hit the end stops with more energy. You'll feel it during a firm upshift at 4,000 RPM. The engine twists as torque reverses. The mount lets it roll a little too far, and that extra motion tugs on the exhaust flex joint while stretching a cooling hose. Neither part fails right away, but the flex braid gets a new crease and the hose sees repeated elongation. A week later, a faint tick appears under load, or a small seep shows up near a clamp, and it traces back to that added swing. Those same swings send vibrations straight into the cabin. With less damping, start and shutdown become events. A knock as the engine rocks forward onto a stop, then a second bump as it rebounds. On manual and automatic cars, gear changes feel rougher because the drivetrain isn't returning to center cleanly. It's oscillating through center and loading the mounts in cycles. That oscillation can show up as a buzz in the steering column or a shake in the pedals that seems random, but it's just the engine's natural frequency coming through. And here's the part most owners never see. A brand new mount can be primed for this whiplash if it's installed under tension. If a tech uses bolts to drag the engine into place and tightens the hardware before the engine settles, the mount starts life off-center, living at the edge of its travel. From the first drive, every torque event hammers the same direction. So the payoff starts early. Mechanical whiplash turns a minor softness into amplified movement that stresses exhaust brackets, fatigues wiring looms, and even tugs battery cables long before a mount fails. The cabin clues you in, but the real cost spreads under the hood. Next, we'll tie how your driving and heat buildup take that first slip and push it into a full cascade across the engine bay. What if the rough clunk on startup isn't the first problem? It's the middle of a chain reaction you started weeks ago. That jolt you hear isn't random. It follows a pattern you set with a few habits that feel harmless in the moment. Hard launches, hopping the tracks on your commute, or a streak of wheel hop during a wet takeoff spike torque in both directions. The engine twists one way under throttle, then snaps back when you lift or on the next shift. Those reversals shove the mounts past the calm center where they're designed to live, and every time they hit the limit, they lose a little more control over the next event. The ride still feels normal at cruise, but the mounts are racking up damage in the background. There's another piece that turns this from wear into a fast slide. If the engine gets pulled into place with hardware instead of being settled first, the rubber ends up stretched before you even start the car. That preload means the mount sits near the end of its neutral travel, so one direction has little room and the other has too much. Now every launch and every quick lift drills the same side of the stop. You get sharper impacts, more rebound, and the cycle speeds up. It feels like the mount went bad fast, but the truth is, it never got a fair start. The fix starts with how the job is done. Mounts have a neutral travel range, an at-rest window where the engine can move slightly in any direction without tension. To hit that window, you lower the car onto its wheels or support the subframe at ride height. Let the powertrain settle, align the brackets without using the bolts as winches, and only then torque to spec. No stretching the rubber, no forcing alignment with the fasteners. This sequence keeps the rubber centered so it can absorb motion both ways and convert those spikes into controlled movement instead of rebounds. Daily use stacks on top of all this. Heat soak on a summer commute softens the compound. A small oil mist from a valve cover adds contamination that breaks down the rubber faster. Now each parking lot start and stop hits a little harder, and the lurch gets louder week by week. The first visible clue is rarely a torn mount. It's the way the engine sits slightly off, or how the idle shutter lingers longer after shutdown. As the first mount sags, the others get loaded beyond what they were meant to carry. That asymmetry shows up everywhere. One side lifts under throttle while the opposite side drags, so the healthy mounts flex farther and hotter, aging quicker. Steering feel may wander under braking because the powertrain shifts forward on decel and then shifts back after the stop, nudging hoses, tapping wiring, and straining connectors. You chase an intermittent misfire or a random sensor fault, and the root cause is the engine moving just a bit too far, too often. Here's the simple ask that prevents a repeat. When you replace mounts, have the shop prove the engine is at neutral before they torque anything. It takes minutes, and it protects a new set from the same quick death. Because once driving style meets a preloaded install, you get a cascade. More noise, more vibration, hose stress, and electrical gremlins. And it spreads until every mount shares the damage. And if you've changed the torque your engine makes or added weight up front, the next step isn't just swapping parts again. It's choosing mounts rated for the new load so that neutral window still works in your favor. The cheapest fix turns expensive fast when whiplash spreads. One soft mount becomes stressed hoses, cracked exhaust brackets, stretched shift links, even a loose battery cable that arcs. You pay for diagnostics, hoses, wiring, and a second mount job, far more than replacing mounts early. Ask your shop to prove neutral travel at install. Have them support the powertrain at ride height, align without forcing bolts, then torque. Inspect for oil leaks that attack rubber and confirm heat shields near hot zones. Replace mounts as a set. If you've added torque or weight, choose mounts rated for that load. Industrial-grade thinking stops the next cascade.